Hey everybody, so welcome to Plaid's Let's Paint Live. So we are teaching you a painting in 1 hour. So we do this class the first Thursday of every month. We have all different teachers, we have different artists, different types of paintings. We introduce new products to you, and just the goal is to teach you some really fun techniques, introduce you to a painting style, introduce you tonight. We're introducing you to a fabulous new product that's new for Plaid. So thank you for joining us. We have got Caitlin in the studio, and so she will be live on the chat. If you guys have any questions for me, questions about the product or what we just did, a step, please get involved in the chat so that we can learn together. And the result is that you leave this class in an hour with a fabulous painting. So with that, the first thing I want to do is just show you guys the supplies that we will be using. For those of you that have joined us in the past for Let's Paint Live, we always use our Let's Paint Live kit, which includes all the best folk art colors, and it also includes all of the brushes that we will use today. Okay, so with that said, I'm using only a few colors out of the kit, and I want to show you what that is. So I'm using wicker white, I'm using navy blue, I'm using baby pink. Again, these are all in the Let's Paint Live kit. And then I am using French blue, and I am using Thicket green. So if you guys have the Let's Paint Live kit, you've got all the supplies needed. If you don't, I always say to someone, don't skip the class or don't not participate. Grab a white, grab a blue. You'd need a dark blue and a lighter blue. Grab a pink. If you don't have a pink, grab maybe a coral. And grab a green. It can be darker, lighter, but really learn the technique. Go along with us. Your supplies do not have to match mine exactly. All right, now to this super exciting new product that we are introducing to you guys tonight. Plaid now has super thick acrylic, hence the name Super Thick Folk Art. So what this is, you can see obviously it's in a jar with a big lid. It is heavy bodied. Let me open this one, you'll be able to see it beautifully. It's heavy bodied, really thick, almost like a paste acrylic paint that allows you to do all these fun things that we're seeing out there with all the trends. Some texture, elevated layering, lot of blending. You can see that people use cake decorating tips, they use palette knives. So an acrylic paint this thick just allows you to do a lot of fun, creative things. So again, this is this is folk art, super thick. The colors will match our everyday folk art line. The colors can be blended with our everyday folk art. The super thick can be blended with each other, so you can mix and match colors for all of your painting needs. So it's just a really great paint to complement our matte acrylic folk art. All right. So brushes, you have the Let's Paint Live kit. You've got all the brushes that we're going to use. If you don't, I always try to say have a large flat brush, a medium flat brush, and a small flat brush. It does not have to match mine. And then for today, we just need something a little bit smaller. So a little round or a little #1 flat brush. So small, medium, and large. And then for tonight's class, we're going to be doing some texture. So you need a palette knife. Any palette knife that you have is fine. If it's a plastic standard, perfect. If it's a little bit larger or a little bit smaller, if it's metal, all of them will work fabulously for tonight's technique. Of course, water, a palette, and paper towels. And then I always recommend that you have just a little chalk stick. I don't like to provide a pattern because then it kind of becomes a coloring book painting, less about the technique. So we use the chalk stick to create a pattern. And the only other thing that you need tonight is a blow dryer. The blow dryer is simply to get you doing the fun stuff in an hour, and so it allows us to dry just certain elements within our painting. All right, so with that said, we'll get started unless we have any questions. Nope. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, I love to work on a dark background. You can barely see the navy blue, but all of these areas that just have what appears to be, a little bit more detail painted, whether it's in the sky, whether it's around the clouds, that's just simply your background coming through. And that is so easy to achieve with a dark background. Rather than going in and adding that to your painting, you're starting with dark and just adding light. So the first thing we're going to do is using the navy blue, we are going to just base coat our canvas solid. So I'm going to use my largest flat brush. You don't want it too thick where it's not going to dry, but you just want a nice, consistent, even coat. If you don't have navy, you could use black. You could use a really, really dark purple. Really just the goal is to have a dark background as opposed to the white canvas. Whenever I'm base coating, I just squeeze the paint directly onto the canvas. That way, I don't have to waste any on a palette. I'm not going to worry about the edges of the canvas. I'm just going to do the top. That way we can handle and move the canvas around while we're adding all the texture. The FolkArt covers just beautifully. You get such a great even dark background with just one coat. Alrighty, make sure we don't have any thicker areas that won't dry. So I'm just going over that really quick, nice and even. All right, so while you guys are base coating and finishing that up, I'm just gonna hit this with the blow dryer because every step of tonight's project, you want to be dry before we work on top of it. So just keep your blow dryer nearby. That's one of the greatest things about working with acrylic paints is they dry so quickly. If you're working with oils, it takes forever and it's really never dry, so layering is just a whole different type of technique. So acrylics are so fun because you can learn so much in just a short amount of time. Okay guys, so you should have just a solid navy blue canvas. And so now what we're going to do, and I always say, if you want your painting to be a little bit different, have fun and be creative. If you want more water, you would raise the line where the sky meets the water. If you want more sky, you would lower that line. If you want, you know, less green elements for the little marshy area, just create the pattern in the same technique that I'm doing, but definitely make it your own. So the first thing I'm going to do is just separate the sky from the ground with just a really simple line. Don't push too hard with the chalk. We'll paint over it, but there's no reason to have a really heavy pattern. And then what I'm going to look at is the areas that will be land. I'm not going to draw anything in for the sky. The clouds will come with technique, but I'm going to look at these 3 areas that represent the land. And all I'm going to do is, again, really rough. I'm just going to kind of create that patchwork. So that's going to be one little green element. This little one is going to kind of be in the foreground, going from one side, but still cutting off, not going all the way to the end. And then this one, I'm going to kind of split the difference. So when you step back and look at it, know that your horizon line is sky meeting the earth, or sky meeting the ground. And then this is where the water would run. So you kind of got 3 little islands. They're not the same. They're not perfect squares. You're just sketching for placement. Okay. So once you've done that, Now we're going to start applying just really basic color. I'm going to scoot that out because I'm going to use this as my palette. I'm going to put wicker white on my palette. I'm going to put some of the French blue. For now, we're only using the brushes, not the palette knife. A little bit of the thicket green. And then a little bit of the baby pink. So this is our, oh, I'm almost out of that. I got another one. There we go. I like to use all the paint in the bottle. Okay, so what we're going to do, let me get this in there. Maybe it's just a little sideways, but it's still in. You know what, let me scoot all the way over so you guys can see the painting as much as possible. You can scoot your super thick out of there until that's our last step. All right, so I'm just going to kind of have that in there for reference. So always using a dry brush. If you cleaned it in the water, just get it as dry as you can on a paper towel. And now we're simply going to start applying color. Not too heavy because I love for some of the navy blue to show through. So I'm starting with the French blue. And I'm kind of going over my chalk line, and I'm going to fill in this area. I'm not going to base coat exactly. I'm not going to make it a solid area. I'm going to be really loose with the brush and kind of going back and forth in different areas so I get that different consistency of application. That is why I use the dark background, because the blue comes through. The blue kind of creates an automatic shading or highlighting area. And I'm going back and forth in the French blue, but then every now and then picking up some of the wicker white. Not creating a pattern, like don't make checks or don't make stripes by only going back and forth, but kind of move all around that area. You can always add paint, but you can't take it off, so don't overload your brush. But just fill in that area with this dry brush technique. And remember, not covering up that navy blue, because that dark background is what creates all of the fun detail in a loose abstract painting like this one. Like normally, if you were painting a white canvas, that would just be so soft and you'd have to go back in and add all of this texture. With the dark background, it automatically comes through. So that might be enough for now. We're just applying our first layer of color. So that's the marshy area. I'm going to get another brush and I'm going to dip it in the baby pink. No water. And I'm going to, same technique, I'm going to dry brush, not creating a stripe or not creating a check, but just being kind of random. Let your brush run out of paint, because that's what gives you those different levels of color.
And it looks like BJ just came in. The canvas was painted. It was not purchased dark.
Correct. Hey, thanks for joining us. Yeah, it was just a standard white canvas, and we base coated it with FolkArt navy blue. That's a good idea, though. They should make dark canvases. I feel like they make black.
Yeah, I've seen them.
I'm not the only one that likes to paint on dark colors, that means. So same technique, dry brush, back and forth, not creating a pattern, but just applying that pink to kind of represent the sunset. Okay. Now we're going to go in, where is my Dutch Aqua? I'm going to ask Caitlin to get it. Will you see if there's a Dutch Aqua in that box over there? It's a light teal. I think there should be. It's FolkArt regular, not the super thick. Is there? Oh, let's see. Oh, here we go. Sorry, guys. I got one. I thought I had one. Dutch Aqua, which again, I didn't have it on this, or I didn't introduce it in the beginning, but if you have the Let's Paint Live kit, it's in there. If not, it's just a soft teal, Dutch aqua. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so you've got your pink, you've got your water area. Now I'm gonna pick up a dry brush. It's still got that French blue in it, and I'm gonna dip into the Dutch aqua and do the exact same thing. Just creating the sky. I'm not worried at all about the clouds right now, because we're gonna do that with the FolkArt new Super Thick. But I'm picking up a little bit of wicker white just to soften the Dutch aqua, but the same exact technique for everything that we've done so far. Take the Dutch aqua over the pink, blend that area on the sky together. Don't let it be a harsh line that's separating the pink and the blue. Make that a really soft line. Mostly Dutch aqua, but I'm definitely picking up some of the wicker white as we go. But see how I'm going back and forth over here, and then I jump over here. That allows you to get all of this variation in color and not create a little pattern that kind of feels like bricks. I'm going to hold this up because I hope you guys can see it. For anyone that has painted with me, I always paint on a dark background. It's my favorite. But if you haven't, I want you to be able to see the texture of the canvas, the navy blue, and just how powerful that dark background is. It's such a fun way to add contrast and layers. I'm going to add a little bit more pink, going a little higher into the sky, now that I've got all that Dutch aqua. That might be enough. Oh, I put pink up there, never bad. All right, I think that might be enough. So we're starting to layer all of our different elements. So I'm going to clean that medium flat brush. Clean it in the water, totally fine, but just make sure that you dry it on a paper towel. Because if you've got water in your brush, when you do that dry brush technique, it will kind of sink into the cracks of the canvas and you won't get the same look. So now I'm going to do my little land pieces. I'm going to go into the thicket. I know the thicket is dark on the navy blue. I hope you guys can see it. So I'm going to use a lot of the thicket, and I'm going to still go into the wicker white, but barely. Because wicker white on a color as dark as thicket will turn it into a light green so fast. So just be really cautious. You don't want the green to get, you know, like a really soft pastel lime. You want that dark green. So just a little bit of the wicker white goes a long way with a really, really dark color like thicket. But you can see how you get, just by adding just the tiniest bit of white, you get so many different shades of green. And jump around, or it'll just be really heavy in one area, and you want that contrast in all of the different areas of your painting. That one looks like a little dragon head. Here's his little nose. Let me get rid of that spot because it looked like his little tongue. Same thing on this. The littlest bit of white.
It kind of looks like an alligator.
Right here?
Which is fitting because it's a marsh.
It's, I meant to do that. Not really, never. I know, I can only see that now, a dragon or an alligator, and that's a frog. I don't want to run into an alligator at any marsh I go to. Okay, so first thing is all we've done is layer almost like a base coat, but a base coat for the design elements within our canvas. So you have got the correct color for each area of your pattern. So this technique, like let's see, this technique, because we use such little paint, it dries almost immediately. If you've got any wet areas, I don't think I do. The water's totally dry. Yeah, I don't think I do. If you've got any areas that are a little thicker, don't worry about it, but just hit it really quickly with the blow dryer so that you're working on mostly dry paint. So sometimes when I teach this technique, people say, oh, I'm done. I love it really soft and layered. I love all that navy blue coming through. If that's you, you know your painting can be done whenever you're happy with it. So that's kind of a cute little marshy area, but it's just really basic and kind of abstract. But what we are going to do is we are going to go in and add even more. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add just some details, nothing specific, nothing that requires a pattern, but I want to add a little bit of detail to my little land areas first. So all I'm going to do is just same dry brush, same green with a touch of white. I'm just going to do a few lines, just bringing the brush back and forth to soften where the land would meet the water. Go back and forth into the thicket with a little bit of white. Don't completely cover up all your texture, but just soften the dry brush technique that we did. That was back and forth and really random with some long horizontal strokes, just kind of to create that element of the ground. If you need more of any color, reload your palette. Like the bottom of my little land areas, I'm going to do with just the thicket. I'm going to do it a little bit here. I'm going to actually go into the water a little bit and make the edge a little more random. Maybe a little bit there. Just how you would naturally see the way that the water and the land meet in nature. So I'm just changing up that edge just a little. Still no pattern required. You don't have to do too much. I'm going to go into that wicker white, not cleaning the brush, and I'm just going to create a highlight on some of the areas. I'm holding the brush really loose, which kind of sounds like a weird point to bring up, but if you're holding it really close like a pencil, you're more prone to be really specific and outline. If you hold it really loose and even a little bit higher, it allows you to just apply the paint, knowing the technique, but to not overthink the application, because all we're doing still is just applying color. Like I don't want to create lines. I don't want to outline those little green areas. So sometimes just a little tip is if you hold the brush, definitely with this kind of style, a loose, layered, abstract, really textured painting, it just kind of allows you to sketch or go back and forth. So you're just getting some definition in the land. All right, so I'm going to clean both of those flat brushes in the water. And what we just did with the green, we're going to go in and do with the French blue. A dry brush, and I'm just going to, kind of make a not a solid line, but a harsher line where the sky and the water meet. Not a perfect stripe. Not going to fill in those areas completely. Pick up a little wicker white. Maybe a little thicker in some areas, but I'm not going to follow any specific line. I might add a little bit of white, maybe where the waves would break a little or the current would hit against the green, but not everywhere because you don't want it to be exactly the same on all the areas. I'm just going to the top area of the green, maybe where the water would be more shallow. Maybe a solid line here, but with a real sketch, loose back and forth application. And always important not to cover up that dark background, because then all that depth that we created in the beginning is gone. I always have to kind of pull back from it and look at a abstract painting like this, because you can just keep layering and layering because it's actually kind of fun and relaxing, but you don't want to overpaint. So that might be enough, where the land and the water come together. Maybe a little bit of wicker white right there. All right, that might be it. Okay, still using a medium or large flat brush, whatever you're most comfortable with. Drying it on the paper towel. So now I'm kind of going to place some clouds in the sky. I'm not going to, be specific. I'm not going to use chalk because the end result for our clouds is going to be a palette knife and texture with the new Super Thick FolkArt. But I do want to kind of give myself a place to place the clouds. So I need a little bit more wicker white on my palette. I've got the other two colors. So you never want them to be, round or polka dotted. You want them to be as irregular as possible. I always say in a composition, try to do odd numbers rather than evens. So I'm not gonna make a pattern. I'm not gonna trace an outline, but I'm just gonna be mindful, still kind of sketching it or being really loose with the application, that I want a cloud down in this area. But letting those colors that we built up in the beginning still come through, but just being mindful that it's going to be down here. And then never side by side, never in a row. I'm going to do one that's kind of falling off the top of the canvas. Still just sketching or dry brush painting. And I'm going to kind of have this cloud long and skinny on the top. A totally different shape than this guy. And then one more, and I'm maybe going to have him drag off this side of the canvas. I know when I was little I loved to do clouds and they were scallop, scallop. Don't do that tonight. No scallop clouds. Maybe he goes lower all the way to the horizon line. But so you can tell, I know where they are, so when I'm coming at them with a palette knife, but I have not covered up all of that great color that's underneath. Oops, hope you guys can see that. All right, and so now I'm just gonna add, just like we did down here, we kind of freshened up the green and freshened up the water. I'm gonna do that with this same brush and a little bit of Dutch Aqua up here. Maybe get that corner. A heavier application. Maybe a little bit on the top. You're really just adding color until you're happy with the areas and the composition of your sky. Like I have a little too much wicker white right there. You'll see, not right or wrong, I just know that I didn't know where my clouds were going to be at first, but now that I've placed them and I like it, I'm just going to dry brush a little bit of the Dutch Aqua just to eliminate that area as being specific to a cloud when we come in with the super thick. That same brush, I'm going from I went from white to Dutch Aqua right into the pink. There's not a lot of acrylic paints that can do that and not get super muddy. The FolkArt is so great that you can blend so many colors. They stay true. They blend beautifully. They don't, get muddy and gross. And they're so easy to layer on top of each other. Like you can still see that pink and that aqua are in my brush, and it's just such a beautiful, almost like a soft ombre to create that sky. I'm going to kind of sharpen with a little bit more pink that line where it meets the French blue, but I want to leave a little bit of that navy so it kind of represents way out in the distance. But I love the pink. All right, maybe that's enough. I think it is. Okay, another step is this could also be done. If you maybe don't have the super thick or you're not really comfortable yet with the palette knife, this is a great 1 hour painting, kind of a loose abstract with a lot of layers and highlights and shading. So if you want to, that can also be done. Okay, so now, again, I think it's pretty dry. I did mostly a dry brush technique. Acrylic dries so fast. I might hit it just for a minute with the blow dryer. All right, now everything is totally dry. Okay, guys, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to have a fun time using the FolkArt new Super Thick and a palette knife. So again, whatever palette knife you have, I prefer actually this just very basic plastic palette knife. I'm going to use the Super Thick right out of the bottle, which is also something that I love.
Do you do the blades of grass last?
I'm doing the blades of grass last.
Okay.
Yep. Great question to the student that's paying very perfect attention. And then we're going to be using this periwinkle. And of course white, always white. And then this beautiful turquoise. So only these 4 colors. All right. So let me scoot that out of there. I'm actually going to turn my palette paper around so that I've got a clean side to work on. I love palette paper. If any of you are using a plate, that's also good. But the palette paper is so nice, especially with a brush, or I'm sorry, especially palette paper is great when you're using a palette knife because you want to be able to get flat against the area to load or unload or take off paint or to add more. So having a flat surface to kind of work your palette knife into is really important. Okay, so just like before, you're having fun with this. We are going to go into the periwinkle first. And when you're using a palette knife, I always say it's kind of like peanut butter or it's kind of like butter, and pretend like your canvas is just the toast, because no one's afraid to do that. But when a person gets a palette knife in their hand, they get super nervous. But don't be nervous tonight. So scoop in there. Of course, don't get so much that it's dripping off your palette knife, but you want a good amount of paint. See how super thick and wonderful it is? Like, look at that. Oh, makes me so happy. It won't fall off. Look at that. It's on there, but you want, I hope you guys can see, you want enough on there to move it around your design. A palette knife, you're always using the bottom. So I don't know if you noticed, like I kind of scooped it from the bottom. The top rarely touches the canvas. So I've got a little bit on the bottom. There is no right or wrong to a palette knife textured application painting. So you can pull down to create some texture. You can go across the canvas to create some texture. You can go back and forth. I guess the only tip that I would have is you never want to work in a circular, like you're scrubbing. You never want to outline. You just want to be really loose, like place the palette knife and maybe drag down. Really light-handed. You're not mashing into the canvas because, let's see if you guys can see this. Oh my gosh, look at the texture. You want the texture that that palette knife creates, but you don't want to cover up everything that you've done underneath. So the palette knife definitely comes, you know, with a little bit of practice. I'm not going to do every area with this blue. Maybe I slide across. You can always go back over the super thick and move it if it didn't get exactly where you wanted the first time. And just keep going into the formula and just adding. Again, the key is really light-handed. You're not mashing down on your canvas, and you're just kind of letting the palette knife place the texture in a really natural, organic way. It's like you love peanut butter and you're making a sandwich, but you don't want too much. You can move it around. You can have a super thick area, like maybe in the middle. I'm going to be a little bit more heavy with my application. I love the texture. Oh gosh, look right there. See how that full-bodied acrylic just sits up and it creates all that beautiful texture. But it's also, you can just keep working it. Like if that's too much of a square and I want it to kind of just soften into the edge of the water area, you can move that around. I think I might want a thicker area over here. My little marshy day is windy, so the water has got these cute little areas where they're rising up. If you've got too much of the super thick, I don't right here, but I just want to show you how easy it is to work with. Kind of scrape it, and then you can go right back over and apply the texture. Moving it is just really simple. So whenever I work with a palette knife, now I never put it in the water. I just have a paper towel, and I kind of just rub off any extra paint. And then I'm going to go directly into the super thick white with a clean palette knife, again loading on the bottom. The top never touches the canvas. And I just want to get these little areas where maybe the wind is creating a wave or it's creating a current, and you just get all of those different levels of texture. So maybe right here I'm going to add some white. I'm going to let it blend with the periwinkle, but I'm not going to blend it together on purpose. Like I'm not going to create a softer tone, but I'm just going to allow the white to blend in areas, just simply because it's applying right over the top. Really light-handed is the best tip that I've got. If you pick up some blue like I did right there, I just wipe that on a paper towel because I don't want to put too much blue back into the white. Make like a little area right there, and that actually might be enough. I kind of like the heavy white right there. Just skimming across the blue. That might be it. Each painting is going to be so unique and so different tonight because of the techniques that we're using. All right, same palette knife, just a dry paper towel. And now we're going to do that same technique with our sky. Okay, I'm using the soft pink. Same technique. Look how thick and wonderful that is. Oh, I love it so much. Okay, loading it just like I did. Mainly on the bottom, not too much, but just enough on there to get some movement. And just like we did with the water, I'm going to do that with the sky. I'm going to be mindful though of where my clouds are, so I'm not going to go over, but I'm going to just maybe start horizontal and lift up just a little. I don't want any solid color with the Super Thick. I want the FolkArt matte to show through. I want the navy to show through. I want the dry brush to show through. You're just creating, height and texture with the Super Thick. Go a little bit into my cloud. I think right there is the perfect way you can see. It's the Super Thick with the FolkArt matte, with the blending of the Dutch aqua and the pink, and then still the navy. So that's what gives you all of that depth within your painting. Okay, so that might be it for the pink. So we're going to do our clouds very, very last. So I am going to blend a little bit. So I am going to take this Aqua Super Thick, and I'm going to take a big old scoop and put that on my palette paper. Clean off my palette knife, and I'm going to get a big old scoop of the white. I think I mentioned earlier, just like any of our FolkArt matte regular acrylics, you can blend them and shade them and make, softer and lighter and different colors. You can do the same thing with Super Thick. So I've got the dark aqua, but it's too dark for my painting. So I'm simply going to add some white and just mix that together on your palette paper until you get the color that you want. And add a little bit more white. Oh, I love this though. You guys can really see, I hope, how thick and wonderful this new formula is. You'll have to go on our website. Jessie made a box that looks exactly like a cake. She used all these fun cake decorating tips. It looks exactly like frosting. It's absolutely beautiful. And that's so easy to do with this new Super Thick. All right, so once you get the color that you want, same thing, you're loading your palette mostly, or your palette knife mostly on the bottom, and then you're going to do exactly what we've done. You're just going to add, don't outline your cloud. You can kind of run into the cloud if you want, but nothing should be a straight line and nothing should be, precise. With an abstract painting like this, you can scoot along the top horizontal and then kind of drag down to create your texture. I'm going to go in between these clouds. No straight lines. And if you go into the white and kind of mix more, but you've got different values on your palette knife, that's a really great way to also add more texture. See how that? You can barely see it, but it's not fully blended, so you get kind of a little bit of that dark aqua, which is nice, and then a little bit of the wicker white. So add as much texture as you like. Sometimes people like that really hard, almost chiseled texture area. Definitely do that if that's the look that you like. Skim over the pink. It's fun to have two unexpected colors like that, pink and aqua, come together, especially with the texture. All right, so you've got texture in your sky, you've got texture all over your canvas. And now we're going to go in, we're going to kind of skip our clouds for now, just to give this a minute to dry. It's still an acrylic-based formula, so it'll dry really quick. I just want to give it some time to dry, and we're just going to add the tiny little details into the green area. Okay, so if you don't have thicket, the dark green, get a little bit of that on your palette. And this is really the only time that we are going to use water. So I'm using my little liner brush. I'm going to wet it, but not a bunch of water, but just enough to move the paint a little bit more and make it thinner. Just dip into that water just one, maybe twice, and just kind of mix that on the edge of your thicket. Again, because it's an abstract, we're not going to have tons of details, but just enough to kind of freshen up the painting a little bit. So we're just going to drag in a very random pattern. We're just going to start at the bottom. Always pull up because that's where your stroke gets the thinnest, where you end your stroke. So I am just going to pull up. I picked up a little bit of that blue. That's okay. Pick up water if you need it. If your islands are really, really dark like mine are, you can go in and add a little bit of wicker white, or you can jump around to different areas of the green. Maybe if it's a little lighter in this area, my base coat, I'll add some of the thicket right out of the bottle. And then these areas, look, I'm going to pick up the super thick white. Told you they work well together. A little bit of water, that's what allows you to get that really thin line. So right here, the base coat is a little darker, so I added a little bit of white. You don't want to create too much detail because we've got this really soft abstract texture, but just enough to create a little depth in your painting. Right here, I'm going to go just into the dark. I'm just dipping in the water if the paint's not moving and creating a really long stroke. Otherwise, you don't need water at all. But little clumps of grass. Some are taller, some are shorter. I'm going to get a little bit of that white. A little bit of water. Maybe a little clump of grass down here. If you don't get a long stroke, at least an inch, add a little bit of water to your FolkArt, because that's what allows it to just move and end in a really thin point. Shoot some out to the left, some tall, some shorter. Keep it a really abstract, dimensional painting. That might be enough, a little bit right there. That might be it. I don't want to overdo it. Okay, that's it for me. All right, so now we're going to do our clouds. It's wet for sure because the super thick does take a little bit longer to dry. Do not worry about that. All right, I'm going to scoop that green out of there. I do not want green in my clouds. And then I'm going to get more of the white. And I'm actually going to put it on my palette just because I've already got some on there. It's okay if there's a little bit of aqua in there. You just don't want to go into the color that you blended real heavy. All right, so same technique. We're just loading that palette knife, heavier on the bottom. And we're not going back and forth as much. So we are kind of creating the edge of a cloud. But again, not repeat scallops, not the same shape, but feel comfortable creating a half circle or creating, a C shape with your palette knife. So I'm going to kind of create that area of the cloud, but do it one little section at a time. Still really light-handed, so you're just kind of skimming across the canvas. Maybe a little C shape over there. Enjoy it if you pick up some of the pink or if you pick up some of the aqua, because all that's doing is adding some texture. But you're going to create the outside edge first. I also always tell people, we always seem to work on our canvas exactly up and down like we started. If your palette knife technique, if you're more comfortable maybe pulling towards you, which I am, turn your canvas upside down. That way you're still doing the same application. You're not having to relearn how to move your hand another direction. So not scalloped, not a pattern. I'm letting it, go into the other colors. I'm going to pick up more. This is where my cloud is kind of long and skinny. So I'm going to do like a big U. I think it's really just fancy peanut butter application. I'm going to scoop that area. I'm going to turn my canvas over. I only did that because I'm more comfortable pulling towards me. I think I want the clouds to be the thickest part of my little composition. I'm not going to completely cover those areas because I do love the navy and I love the canvas texture. But I'm going to make that a little bit thicker than some of the other areas. Maybe a hard edge on the cloud. Everything I see these days, whether you're out shopping or decorating your home, it's got so much texture on it. Like kind of soften, if you did create a really hard edge with any of your clouds, you can just soften that by just barely skimming over an edge. And I got to pull back and look, but I think that might be exactly the puffy clouds that I wanted. I think that's it. Do we have any questions, Caitlin?
Nope.
Not a one? Well, I love that, I hope. Okay, so I think mine's done. I'm definitely guilty that I can overwork and overwork and overwork a canvas. That's a fun technique like this. But you can always come back to it. You can always add more things. But this, I hope, was a really great introduction to the FolkArt Super Thick, which we have so many colors in the line. Again, they work great with FolkArt Matte. You can blend them, you can shade, you can highlight, but it is such a fabulous formula to use on so many fun projects. So thank you for joining us for Let's Paint Live. Again, we do the first Thursday of every month. Lots of techniques, lots of different instructors, and we just try to teach you something fun. So thank you guys for joining us, and we hope to see you in July. See you later. Bye.